everybody, it's Courtney Cooper and it's Training Tip Tuesday. I am going to talk to you guys about concussions. I'm a 5-star event rider and owner of C Square Farm and a partner in Excel Star Sport Horses. And unfortunately, with riding horses and eventing in particular, we will fall off. And not every fall results in a concussion, but sometimes you do have falls that result in concussion. So that's what we're going to talk about today, taking care of your noggin. So if you have questions, please let me know. I've gotten a couple questions, and so we're going to talk about those. And then we're also going to find out where you guys are watching from. And if you have the opportunity to watch this after noon, because we always do it at noon, please feel free to leave me a question. I'll be happy to answer it. First and foremost, I am not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV. If I were to be anything, it would be a vet. So, you know, the first thing is always to talk to an MD about what you're doing and where you go from there. So, with that on board, we're going to talk more about it. Any questions? Anybody have anything? Nobody yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So, what exactly is a concussion? A lot of times we fall off and we might land on our feet, or we might land on our side, or we might actually even land and pop off on our head. And it's not a concussion. Basically, a concussion is an insult to your brain. And so, depending on the speed at which you land, depending on if you land on your head, depending on if you have a lack of consciousness or temporary amnesia, those are all things that, depending on their severity, will lead you to know if you have a concussion. If you think you have a concussion, then you need to go to the hospital and you need to get checked out, because you can have a brain bleed, and a brain bleed can actually be fatal. Not to be dramatic, knock on wood, I've never had that happen, but certainly there have been cases with people skiing. There was a famous actress who fell, thought she was fine, ended up having a brain bleed and passing away. So take care of yourselves. My fall at Plantation was because, well, I'm not really sure why it happened, to be honest, because I don't remember it. But I ended up landing pretty hard on my left-hand side and on my head. My horse actually ended up falling as well. And I can tell you that I ended up at the top of the hill at Plantation in an ATV, and I was not on a backboard, which meant that I had gotten up, I was having a conversation, I seemed relatively normal, and, you know, they brought me up the hill. The fact of the matter is, I don't remember any of that. So, I have some temporary amnesia. I have about 10 or 12 minutes of temporary amnesia where I can remember everything before the fact, and I can remember after it, but I can't remember that time frame. So if you have, excuse me, I'm going to go get my dogs because they're scratching the door. It's turn around. You're such bad dogs.
I want to be outside.
Get in and be quiet. So anyway, it's the nursing team.
Mm-hmm.
Flower was on nursing duty last week, so it's been very attached to me. Anyway, so a concussion is an insult to the brain. And so a lot of times people say, well, you know, I didn't even necessarily hit my head. Well, a lot of times if you don't hit your head, you can still have a concussion because it's the fact that you've been going, let's say, 20 miles an hour cantering, and all of a sudden you fall and your brain hits the inside of your skull because you've gone from 20 miles an hour to 0, and that results in a bruised brain. So, like I said, the real key is, how do you feel? How bad do you feel? Do you have a lack of consciousness? Do you forget things? Are you okay over there?
Yeah, it's fine. All good.
They just played with And so those types of things. Any questions?
Nope, that's what I was doing, and then I accidentally flipped it to myself really fast.
So
I was
anyway,
like, whoops.
so you know, what can a concussion lead to? It can lead to headaches. It can lead to fatigue. It can lead to a general feeling of NQR, which is not quite right. It can lead to vomiting. It can lead to depression, and if you have enough concussions, you can get CTE, which is a condition that boxers and football players have gotten, which have led to depression and lots of really bad things. So if you have multiple concussions, you need to take care of your head. And so if you have any of those after effects after you fall, again, probably a good idea to get checked out. So what is aftercare? There has been a surge in the last probably 10 years in concussion doctors and in people who take care of people with traumatic brain injuries, of which a concussion is one. And what do they tell you should do? The first and foremost thing is to have time to rest. And ideally, rest means no physical activity as well as no mental activity. So even though I'm a fairly active person and ride, 8 to 12 horses a day and teach lessons and do lots of outdoor work and, move jumps and clean tack and move hay and move straw, all of that's out. But that doesn't mean that I could sit at my desk and work at the computer and do spreadsheets and work on the website and look at my phone and on all of that. So it really means rest. Be in bed, close your eyes. If you get really bored, turn on some music, listen to that. Turn on some reruns of your favorite show, so you don't necessarily have to watch the show to know what the plot's going to do. If someone dies or someone doesn't die, or your favorite character comes back. So you can do that sort of thing. You also want to make sure that you have no headaches. Now, you can definitely medicate so that you don't feel as bad. I think most horse people in general are pretty stubborn individuals, and we want to get right back to it. And so because of that, I have not medicated myself because I tend to do too much. And so if I'm medicated, I'm going to do too much too soon. And so I chose not to medicate, but certainly, if you don't want to feel like crap, give yourself some Advil and give yourself some time. The most important piece, too, is to have people around who know you. Maybe it's people like Paige, in my case, or my husband, or some of my clients who know me and know when I'm not 100%. If, perchance, I start going, oh, no, I'm fine. And they're like, not so much. So, rest is number one important. The other thing is, obviously, reduce your physical and mental activity. If you want to go outside, like after a couple of days, I sort of felt better, and I decided I was going to go teach some lessons. I sat down in the shade, and I put a mic on so that my students wore earpieces, and so I didn't have to yell, which helps. And then I was also in the shade, which helps. And then I also wore sunglasses, because another thing you get sometimes with concussions is you get sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound and sensitivity to light. So the fact that I didn't have to, now we have another dog too badly outside. So the fact that I didn't have to shout and the fact that I had sunglasses on really helped. Any questions yet?
Yes. Robin said, how do you decide you are recovered enough to return to normal work, and does it take longer if you have more than one concussion?
Well, I don't know the answer to the second question because I'm not a doctor.
But probably.
But the answer is probably, I would imagine, because the second insult, I would imagine, would be worse. And in terms of return to work, I'll get to that in just a second. So The other thing you can do is I had gotten into a practice of meditating and trying to do some controlled mental work and controlled breathing work, and there are lots of apps that you can use for that. Calm is one. I also use an app called Headspace, so you can use both of those things. In terms of returning back to work, there are a couple things that you can do. One thing that I recommend that everybody does that is a rider or an athlete is to take an impact test. It's IMPACT, and you can Google it, and it's a computer test, and it's not a knowledge test. What it is a test about your reflexes, about your reactions to light, memory, placement of things. And so what it does, when you're feeling good, you should take it, ideally, because it'll give you a baseline of sort of what your activity is based on those tests. And it's a hard test to explain, but anyway, it does all sorts of things. It's more like a gains test than a knowledge test, for lack of a better word. So if you can take the impact test, it gives you a baseline, and then once you've recovered to a certain point, you can take the impact test again, and you can compare your scores, and if your scores are sort of within the same range, then usually they say you're good to go and go from there. You can also go see a family practitioner or a concussion specialist. Again, a lot of the times in terms of return to work, the hardest thing is it's a self-monitoring thing, and it's do you wake up and you say, gosh, I feel really good today, or gosh, I feel crummy, or you sort of do a self-scan, which is what I've been doing in the mornings when I wake up, and I sort of go, okay, do I have a headache? Where is the headache? Can I sort of get the headache to go away just by doing some breathing exercises? You go through all those patterns. Does the headache go away when I get up? I have longer hair now, and there was actually a meme on Facebook the other day about summer headaches, and are they from ponytails, dehydration, lack of caffeine, stress, or lack of sleep? And I was like, all of the above. So I know, like with wearing ponytails, for example, sometimes that will give me a slight headache before. So, do you have a concussion headache or do you have a ponytail headache? And so I guess, Robin, the answer to your question is you have to do some self-evaluation. And the other thing is I have gauged it by saying, how do I feel today versus yesterday? And then slowly ramp up the work. They have done lots of work and concussion studies, and what they have found is people make really bad decisions when they have concussions. You should not make any basic life-altering decisions when you're recovering from a concussion. And all of your friends should tell you that, which they have. And so because of that, you need to be kind to yourself, and you need to take it slower than you think. And so, for example, for me, I fell on Saturday. I didn't feel really actually that bad. I just had the loss of consciousness. Sunday, I took it pretty easy. I was on the couch all day. Monday, I felt pretty good. So I did make the mistake of taking a couple Advil in the morning, which made me feel pretty good. And I sort of taught a couple lessons in the shade and answered a few phone calls, and then took the afternoon off. So I actually didn't feel too bad. And then felt pretty good. And then Tuesday, I had some clients coming and had some other things going on, and I went to help the girls, and I lunged some horses. I would not recommend lunging. At the time, I didn't think it was a big problem, but going around and around in circles probably is not the thing to help your head. So no lunging until you're recovered. And so anyway, so Tuesday I did too much. I lunged. I helped with a client. I dealt with a few issues that I was having with my horses and with clients. Dealt with the vet, had a client in, and basically had about an hour or two of rest. And so Wednesday I felt wretched. And so the headache wasn't horrible. I just didn't feel right. I was really fatigued. I was not quick-minded. I like to think of myself as quick-witted and quick-minded, but I definitely wasn't last week. So Wednesday took most of the day off, no drugs. Thursday I did a little bit, not a lot, and then Friday I did a little bit more. And my loving husband, who's been working from home some days, sort of texted me and then came down and got me so I would rest. And so what I've done is a little bit more every day. I was hoping to be able to ride on Saturday, but I didn't feel great, as great as I wanted to, because I wanted to do a full day of physical work on the ground before I got on. Because again, if you go back to, you don't make great decisions when you have concussions. You probably shouldn't be driving cars, which I didn't do until yesterday, or B, riding horses that you can fall off of. So, like I said, I decided I needed to do sort of a full day. So, did that on Saturday, thought, okay, Sunday will be the day I get back on. And Sunday just felt marginally a little bit worse, and so I decided to sort of do the same thing with a little bit more office work. Monday felt about the same, so I decided to see if I could feel the same today. Felt the same today, and as you can see, I am in boots and breeches, and I rode one horse on the flat. And so in terms of a return to work, for example, for me, I'm going to do one horse on the flat today. And if I feel good tomorrow, then I'm going to maybe do 2 horses on the flat. And they are going to be 2 horses that I know really, really well. No youngsters. Well, all of mine are youngsters. No 4-year-olds. And then, based on that, maybe what I'll do is I will do one jumping, and take away, like, flat one and do some light jumping. But the idea is that you build up your work, and then if you have a day where you don't feel as good, you back off your work. And then you just sort of play it by ear and you go forward and back. I have a friend who's recovering from a broken bone, unfortunately. And her recovery, to some extent, will be easier than my recovery, because the only one, if you're recovering from a broken bone and you do too much, you're sore, and it sucks, and you're sore, but you can, like, medicate yourself and you're fine. But you have one brain, and so you really need to take care of yourself, and you really need to go probably slower than you think you do, and take it easier than you think you do. Any other questions?
Nope.
No other questions. Feel free, guys, to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them. So, in terms of concussions, what do you do to keep safe? Well, obviously, you wear good helmets. I am sponsored by Sam Shield. I really like their helmets because they fit my head. I've used a lot of different helmets over the years, and I must have a funny shaped head because the Sam Shields fit me like a glove, and I could wear them. I do wear them all day, but I have never really gotten a headache from them. So if you have a concussion, rule number 1, get a new helmet. Because even if you can't see the problem, the fact of the matter is, sorry, you might hear the dogs whining in the background. We tried to keep them out, but alas, it's not really working.
Oh my God.
Alas. So even if you can't see damage, you need to go ahead and get your helmet undone and redone. And some companies will give you a discount if you, or they have in the past, replace your helmet. So that's number 1. Number 2, wear a vest. I have several people who wear vests all the time and wear them when they jump, and because the hunter jumper world has now gotten involved with that, they make some pretty slick ones. I obviously had a vest on, and I also had an air vest, and that took care of me. Hit Air takes care of me on that side, and they have a great air vest, and luckily I didn't have any neck or back trauma because of that, so I'm thankful to them, and so I will get a new cartridge for them. and do that. So we have that as well. The other thing is make sure there's nothing wrong with your horse. Like, was there a reason that the horse had a problem? And, is it out of character, and what's going on? And have, hopefully, if you have a bad concussion, you have someone who can take, or an injury, you have someone who can take your animal and take care of them. And for that, use a veterinarian and see what they have to say. And if you have any proof of the fall, i.e. photos or video, you can look at that. I will tell you, from a mental standpoint, that's not something I do. I never like looking at falls, and I don't like to see videos or photos of falls. I have a couple people who are good friends of mine that, in this case, I sent the photos to and asked for their opinion of what happened, so I could, relay that information to my team of people who I work with. But keep yourself safe about doing that. Any questions? No questions. Nobody wants to ask any questions. The other thing I will tell you is our National Federation is actually pretty proactive about concussions, which I think is really great. And the Monday after the fall, I got an email from them saying that I had been basically put on a disabled list, and that I either needed a doctor's note for a return to play or an impact test, and that the suspension would last for 3 weeks. And I think that is really smart on their part, and I think it's important for people to acknowledge that, when I was riding and when I was growing up, when I was young, it was to get right back on the horse, even if you hurt yourself or even if you got dinged pretty badly. And I think now people are realizing that that's not necessarily the best way to handle things, to jump right back on, especially if you're hurt or if your bell got run. To that end, on the whole point of taking care of yourself and not coming back too soon, there is a syndrome called secondary concussion syndrome that I've seen affect people that I know and care about, where they came back too soon and maybe they had a very small concussion. I had one young lady who lived in New York City and rode with me, and she was in her basement and something surprised her, and she turned around real fast and she hit, her ceiling was quite low, and she hit her ceiling, and it wasn't anything. She didn't lose consciousness. It didn't really even bother her that much. She said that it stung when she had it happen, but it wasn't a big deal. And long story short, she came down, I think about 10 days, 2 weeks later. She hadn't mentioned the thing in the basement to really anybody. I think she said something to her mom, but in passing. And she ended up popping off her horse, landed on her feet. It was a very soft fall, but then she ended up having some really tough times with really bad headaches and some minor seizures, and it took her probably 45 to 60 days to sort of be back to 100%. And I know another young lady who it impacted her even longer. So it's not something to kid around with, and it's something to take very seriously. So take it easy. I'm very fortunate that I have a young lady, Emily Himmel, helping me out right now, who has been a godsend. And then, of course, Colette Lieber, who is my working student for the summer, and Anna Ransom, who is also here as a working student, and they've been riding the horses and doing a fantastic job with them, and I'm forever grateful. And then obviously there's Paige, who's on the camera, who has been keeping the ship running, and my husband. And so those are all important things. So I mean, the thing you don't want to do is have long-term lasting foggy effects or mood swings or depression or balance problems. And so I would just really hope that everybody takes care of their head and take care of their noggin. There was that great social media work that was on Mind Your Melon a couple of years ago, and I wholeheartedly agree that you need to mind your melon because you only have one of them. So, if you have a bad fall, take your time getting back, and take your time to get back to work by doing it incrementally. And only you can know how you feel. And so do a lot of self-evaluation and see how you feel and go from there. So, any other questions?
Nope.
No other questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, we look forward to hearing from you guys on other subjects that you want covered. I am looking forward to continuing to go back to riding. I've missed it a lot. And look forward to hearing from you guys on future subjects. Hope you guys stay healthy and happy, and you've enjoyed Training Tip Tuesday. And with that, we're signing off. Have a great day. Bye-bye.